All right, so welcome everyone to a new episode of Extraordinary Talks by Sarona Ventures, Tech Shield Edition, where we chat with extraordinary members of the high-tech scene from all over the world. Greetings from your host, David Debash, operating partner at Sarona Ventures. Today, we take you a bit off the beaten path and take you to a country, which is Italy, which happens to be as well my country of origin too. That is well known worldwide, but maybe not enough for their startup history and their high-tech strength throughout Europe. So a warm welcome to a friend and a colleague, Marcello Tedeschi, Managing Director at Alchimia Investments.
Hi, everyone.
Italian VC. Good to have you. Always good to have you. So tell us more about you. Let's start with this and tell us more about Alchimia.
Of course. Thanks, David, first of all, for the invitation, and thanks to Sarona. I think what you're doing is great. So happy to be here and to share a bit of our experience in the Israeli tech scene in the past years and my personal one. I come from a financial background, so M&A, consulting, traditional, let's say, financial background. But I always had the passion for the ecosystem of startups, both in Italy and abroad. I started with a nonprofit organization many years ago, funding it, and was meant to help Italian tech ecosystem to start, because it was when the VC sector in Italy was basically unknown. That was back in 2012. And I started my career in VC with that experience. Then on one side, I started investing in Israeli funds and American funds with my family. And the other side, I started investing in super seed startups in Italy. So I had the two angles of the market. One was very niche and very young, and the other one was quite broad and already pushing on returns and an international market. Fast forward back 4 years and a half ago, an Italian entrepreneur called Paolo Barletta called me and say, "Hey, I have this vehicle that is called Alchimia Investments. We are active as direct investments VC company, both in Italy and abroad. What do you think about joining us and kicking off again a bit the strategy after the first period where there was a different team managing the company?" I call it company because we're not a fund. We're a permanent capital investment vehicle, so it's a bit different from a managerial perspective, but in terms of objectives, it's quite the same. So we look to invest, to divest, to give returns to our investors that are 5 Italian entrepreneurial families with strong Italian roots, but they always understood the need for innovation, and they always seen that Italy was not enough for that. And so the imprinting of Alchimia was always to invest globally. This is how we also started to invest in Israel, actually. And then I know that we will jump into this later down the road, but just to give you a bit more details about Alchimia, we are a global investor. We have, as of now, approximately 25 portfolio companies with a total invested amount of 120 million euros. So we are very small for the international ecosystem, but if some of you know the Italian ecosystem, actually we're quite well positioned in the top 5 players, I would say. And we're probably the only one investing directly on a global scale. So happy to discuss about our strategy in Israel and how we act there.
Well, absolutely. Actually, I wanted to maybe have a bit of a background from you about the Italian ecosystem quickly. It's not something that the classic high-tech geek would be aware of or be familiar with. So you mentioned that there are a few VCs. I understand that size of those VCs really varies, but most of the VCs focus in Italy or they focus abroad as well. How does the ecosystem looks right now in Italy? And if you would have to compare it to one, even a few years ago, which one would it be?
So the Italian ecosystem, it's quite local, I should say, right now. So meaning that there are quite a number of small funds, but are meant to invest in the local ecosystem. This is because it started with the push from a governmental entity that is called CDP, the Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, meaning the state-owned, say, portfolio for private investing. And it started with this push. And with this push came also the boundaries for the new funds and for created funds to invest in the local ecosystem in order to have public money invested. So what happened here is that there was a bit of on one side, a good trend and a bit of a first push on the market and we started to see some good investments, some good A and B rounds. But on the other side, it's very local market. So the valuations are very low, the exit possibilities are quite small, and also the listed markets are not allowing a proper public listing process for VC. Therefore, it's not a big market. Overall, in the 2023 was a bit more than $1.5 billion. And we expect it to grow, and there's a good push, but at the same time, we're still lagging a lot behind. In terms of a bit of ecosystem, I should say that it's like probably France 5-6 years ago, maybe even a bit more, where you have a big presence of the state in the ecosystem with a first push, the first big international plays in terms of investments and M&A. Some unicorns here and there that are popping up, but nothing really significant in terms of exits or second-time founders, let's say money coming from the stock option plans reinvested in the ecosystem, et cetera, et cetera. So good first steps, but still baby steps.
Great. Well, France right now is an interesting innovation hub. So hopefully we'll catch up these 6-7 years fast enough and put Italy on the map, not just for the things that everyone knows about, but also for startups.
Hopefully. Make my job easier, actually. So hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, thanks to you as well. Great. Okay, so let's get to know a bit more Alchimia as well, in a way of which startups do you invest in and which geographies do you mostly focus on?
Mm-hmm. So it started as a totally differentiated strategy, meaning we were really opportunistic in terms of approach, both in B2B and B2C, early stage, a bit less early stage, countries and everything. What happened is that we realized that we needed to focus a bit more in order to have a more quality pipeline. And so I would say in the past 3 years, mostly, we started to focus on B2B startups, mostly mostly software rather than hardware. This is mainly because of CapEx investments that we need to assess because we're not a big fund. So we need to also look at a bit of the dilution path that we might have during the line. And with a long-term objective, meaning that for us, it's more important the cash on cash than the IRR because we have behind some families. And so it's more important to actually create value on the longer run than fast. So in this, we were quite good in partnering up with great founders and great VC plays that needed also an Italian approach or European, partner to develop in Italy or in Europe and have a bit of a soft landing in terms of contacts and help. So this is a bit how we position ourselves. Today, it's early stage B2B strategy mainly, differentiated in terms of industries, that helps the international startups to come to Italy or to Europe. And on the other side, the Italian companies we invest in to try to be a bit more international. To be honest, our portfolio looks a bit weird as a first look because we have 5-6 companies that are mature now, that are either listed or in the growth phase, and some others that are early stage and some others are the seed stage. But this, again, it's because as we're not a fund that it's binded by exits. If we see a long-term value in a company, we can also hold it for the longer run. So the overall look that we have on our portfolio is very differentiated. But in terms of entry point for new investments, it's quite clear where we want to be.
Amazing. Okay. And in terms of geography?
In terms of geographies, we look, of course, at Europe because it's one of the main markets. I would say more Southern Europe than Northern Europe because of access. So Italy, France, Spain, Germany, with a high presence of Italy as of now. We have United States and Israel as main markets, UK and some LATAM as well. So we have one investment in Mexico as of now. And we're looking to do more also in Latin America in the near future.
It's potentially an amazing market. So it's a great choice.
It's very different than what we are used to do in Israel, for example, where there's a very little local market and very big international approach from day one, with many capitals coming from abroad investing in the country. Here is exactly the opposite. It's a bit like Italy in that sense, right? So you have a big local market, some local funds, not many international players, and a lot to do. So very different markets that we like to mix up to have more mature markets on one side and less mature markets on the other.
I agree. Completely opposite, but the potential there is amazing. Just the local size of the market is just impressive, and it's very underrated. So interesting.
There are great founders as well, because the tech scene it's deploying very fast because of people from Latin America that studied or worked in US startups or US companies or studied in US universities and decide to go back to their home countries to push for the tech innovation. So very good, actually, entrepreneurial pattern.
Great. So let's turn our focus more toward Israel. Let's understand. Well, what brought you to invest in Israel?
So I should say it was before me, the families already started to invest in Israel, and I think it's quite important to remark that Alchimia always had Israel in the map for tech investments. And it was not just related to personal reasons or to attitude of the team or selected, let's say, mindsets. So it was really a seek for the best tech that you could have in the world, and an ecosystem that could be quite vibrant and quite fast to enter and to exit from companies and to have a good push on that. So this was the original theory, say, to invest in Israel, continue investing in Israel, and find good startups to scale internationally, globally, and even to bring them to Europe if needed or if they wanted, and help them in that step. And I should say I completely agree on that. So we continued with my leadership to invest in Israel because we believe that it's a great market to invest in, and there is a resilience in the market. I think this topic will come up later as well. That it's something that you could really see in every curve that we had in the history, from a financial standpoint or from a political standpoint or from a geographical standpoint.
You mentioned something that is quite interesting too. Israeli startups usually see as their path of growth a internal growth in terms of local, and then go right away to the US. While what you mentioned is try to bring them as well to Europe, which I believe as well it's a great opportunity. But right now is off the map for several companies, putting aside a few industries. It can be the water one that is very active in Italy, for example. But most of them look at the US right away. Why they do it, I guess it's clear. It's a matter of maturity of the market and size of the market there. But what do you think? Why do Israeli startups, and in general, I guess right now we're focusing on Israeli, should also look at Europe as a market, as a go-to market for their growth?
So I think, of course, it's more difficult Europe than the United States, right? Like it's a market with many different languages, many different jurisdictions, and many local players as well in terms of corporates to partner up with. So in that sense, I understand that it's been more challenging than approaching the United States. On the other side, though, first of all, it's near. Like it's a 3 hours flight to go from Rome to Tel Aviv. So and you have the approximately the same time zone, so it's quite easier to work with teams that are located both in Italy or in France or Spain and Israel. It's quite more natural from a organizational standpoint. Secondly, I believe there is a big lack in innovation rather than in the United States, where the technology, it's more advanced. So we have the need of innovation in the economic system in Italy or in Europe anyways, way more marked than in other jurisdictions in other countries. So I think there is a need of a push from a technological standpoint that can create a clear opportunity in the market for Israeli startups.
So tell us about your investment in Israel. Pick one if you want.
Sure. Also, we have just one right now. We're looking for new ones, but we have just one active.
Very interesting.
So we actually performed 2 exits, 2 in Israel. This is why we are now underweighted, let's say, in the Israeli market. But at the same time, we have one that's one of our top performers, and we really like the company. So let's say we did 3 investments in the past years. One, it's called the Texel, that was sold then to an industrial group. Another one that was quite successful, it's called DIA, the AI, that was sold to Philips a couple of years ago, 1 year ago. And we still have in portfolio no traffic. It's an Israeli startup co-invested by us and many Israeli funds, such as Grow, for example. And it's really performing well in the United States. And they have a great team. So for us, we've been early investors with them from the seed round. And we've always followed up all the investments, all the rounds they did. And this is a bit another peculiarity of Alchimia. Like, again, as we're not a fund, but an holding company, we tend to invest a smaller ticket at the beginning. But if we like the company and if we believe in the founders and the company, we can actually do 10 times the first investments during the lifetime of the investment itself. So continue investing every single round and try to help them. In this case, we really believe that they're doing a great job, that eventually they will come to Europe. Right now, they're focused on the United States and Canada. We have organized with them a couple of roadshows in Italy, where they realized that the Italian market was very interesting, but probably not ready yet, and they wanted to focus first on the United States and Canada. And so we're really performing well then there. And this is a bit what we're doing with them right now. So helping them out when they want, but at the same time supporting them from a financial standpoint till when they're not ready to come to Europe.
Understand. Amazing. So, okay, let's address the elephant in the room here.
Let's go.
So, October 7th basically changed a bit, changed the daily life for many people here, and for some people as well, the perception of the country abroad. But he also had an economical impact for the high-tech world, at least at the beginning. And this is why we launched TechShield, to support the companies that at first had some investors backing down. So did something change in your investment strategy in Israel? What is your takeaway about the Israeli reaction after October 7? You as an investor coming from abroad and looking at the high-tech scene here, what is the impression that you have?
So let's say it's a bit mixed feelings in this sense. So on one side, we are totally supporting the ecosystem, investing in the ecosystem, looking for new investments to be found and to continue investing. And this is what we believe that it's needed, that can also bring great returns, and that we believe it's the best thing to do right now, not only let's say from a personal perspective, but also from a financial perspective and return perspective. And so this is on the one side. On the other side, it's very difficult. It's very difficult because it's the access to come there and to be on, let's say, on the ground, to meet up investors, to meet up advisors, to meet up startups, and to have the startups coming to Europe. It's a bit harder and it's a bit more challenging, I should say. So it puts a bit of a barrier. It's a bit like going back to COVID in somehow, where the scouting was done by Zoom and the meetings were done by Zoom, and it was a bit more difficult for European investors, at least at the first point. Then it became a bit more normal, so a bit more international traveling. but I have the sense that most of the startups are now focused on operations and focused on the team needs and focused on the market and let's say overcoming many difficulties they had in the past months. And so they're a bit less probably keen in looking for a new outside investor from Italy that it's a bit outside of scope, right? So I have a bit of this sense that it's the access. It became a bit more difficult for international players. It created a bit more of barrier for international players, both in the good and bad sense, meaning that from a local standpoint, it created many opportunities for local funds to outperform and to have access. On the other side, for us, it made it a big difficult. That's why I have a bit of a mixed feelings, I should say. But again, once more, I think the resilience proven by the market and how the market is performing with a number of over 100 million rounds, a number of new funds created, some very big exits performed, are the proof that the Israeli market, it's very solid and it's performing very well despite what's going on. On the other side, of course, to explain it to Italy, it's a bit more difficult because of a lot of ignorance also about what's going on and how is the situation in the market.
That's quite interesting what you're saying, and that's I'm happy to say that I'm surprised of the answer, and I can see that it's from one hand you're mentioning that you believe strongly in the market and you're actually on the lookout now for investment in Israel, and that's great to hear. On the other hand, you're experiencing this barrier due to the current situation, where you would say startups will be eager to welcome external investors as much as possible because they need some of them for expanded runway. First of all, we're happy to be your window into the Israeli ecosystem whenever you need. But it's quite interesting. It's very interesting for me to see, in one hand, that you do believe in the market and you're seeing the market reaction, and that you would like to enter more in the market, but you see this barrier coming due to the war and the lower accessibility that you see due to the situation in Israel. It's quite interesting. I renew my offer to help out, showing you Israeli startups.
Great pleasure.
Startups looking to expand their VCs rounds abroad. So basically, just to go back to it, it's you mentioned that right now is a good time to invest in Israel, and you believe that it's a good time to invest in Israel. Why do you say so?
So again, I think there's a bit less competition, right? In funds that want to come to Israel and invest in Israel. So it's a bit probably more complex to be explained to committees of international funds that it's you need a bit more work on that and to really prove that the market is solid and what's going on. So it's I think it's very interesting right now from an international standpoint to see that as there's less competition to come in, there's more opportunity, of course, to get access to more interesting deals. We are an underdog. We are a second-tier fund, to be honest, right? Like, of course, if you had to choose in between us and the American multi-billion fund, everyone would choose the American multi-billion fund. So for us right now, it's a good moment to invest because probably some of the international big funds are not able, for many different reasons, to invest there. And so I think there's a good opportunity for private markets, for private families, for underdog funds, for funds that are, let's say, more flexible in terms of timing, also of IRR to come into the market. And
so basically, the supply is still there, but the funds, so the startups are still there, and there's still startups, and more startups are being funded. which funny enough, I personally believe that like every war, after a war, there is a baby boom, and there will be also in Israel. After this war, there will be a high-tech boom for sure with new startups that the equivalent for Israeli babies at this point. They will be funded and created. So we do have the supply in the terms of good startups and interesting startups that could be amazing investors. On the other hand, the uncertainty that this situation provides allows to smaller VCs to access deals that before they wouldn't have been able to be, because they were being in the radar of a larger
perception, right? So from outside, I should say that this is a bit the perception. And the interesting thing is that there's also a big understanding of how technology is needed in many different scenarios. So from a local economy, from technology, from energy, from protection, from cybersecurity. So many different aspects are under pressure in these times. And this is where Israel proven in the past, and it's still proving and will prove, I think, even more. And I agree with you that there will be a boom after the war in new startups and new opportunities to be the top notch in the world from this standpoint. So I think it's dumb to say that it's not a good moment to invest in Israel. Of course, it's more challenging. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's bread and butter. It's more challenging because of critics. It's more challenging because of internal pressures. It's more challenging because of the international access of traveling, etc., etc. But I truly believe that it's a great moment to invest in Israel from a financial perspective.
Amazing. So let's look at the macro view again. Fade out, zoom out from the Middle East, and let's look at 2024. How you guys at Alchimia are looking at 2024, or what now that we are now entering Q2? We have a market that has been quite shaky for the past years after COVID. Political instability also had an impact. How is 2024 looking for you guys, and what do you believe will be the main industries that we should be on the lookout for?
So I think it's again a shaky year for many different aspects because of the geographical and economic turmoils across the world, for sure. Many countries going to vote, that put a bit of uncertainty also on boundaries from let's say technological perspective and global access for international startups, and protectionism for sure in many different sectors. So on one side, I don't think that it's going to be a booming year in the VC ecosystem. On the other side, I think there is still a great amount of dry powder that it's in funds, and they will need at a certain point to deploy it. Like they are still waiting to deploy it because it's okay, let's wait a bit more. At a certain point, they will need to deploy it to the market. And this will automatically re-push again the market towards a brighter moment, I think, in the economic rounds and in funding rounds. So on one side, I see this. On the other side, in terms of sectors, defense has been the top market, I think, in these past months, not only in Israel, but globally, with the launch of the new NATO fund that has more than 1 billion of capital to be deployed in double years, with many local funds, with this push, with many governments that are hardly pushing on the innovation in terms of protection. So there's a big trend there with big money on that. But I think that there are the two underlying trends that are quite interesting. One, it's aerospace. That it's a second, let's say, it's an impact of the first one. So everyone understands that aerospace defense, aerospace monitoring, aerospace approach will have a big impact in the next 10 years, both from economical and the geographical standpoint. Healthcare, it's again something that after COVID picked up, was very high. Now the prices are a bit lower, the valuations are a bit lower, but the need is still there, and the funds really perceive the need for a push on in the healthcare sector across the industry, across the globe, with many different applications of it, from AI for data and for drug discovery, from many different aspects, let's say. So I should pick two. I would pick definitely aerospace and healthcare in terms of two main areas. I wouldn't say AI because AI it's just a trend across all the industry. So this is not something it's a buzzword that everyone points out, but it's not really something impacting for me. It's just there.
Understand, which is it's an interesting sentence. Everyone must say AI as the first.
So we did it. So at least we have it in the.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marcello, for your time.
Thank you, David. Great to be here, and we wait for new startups to come in. So happy to see your portfolio, see all the other listeners' portfolio, and to see if there's something that can be done together, and to continue supporting the Israeli tech ecosystem.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And if anyone wants an intro with Marcello, reach out. We'll help you out.
Happy to do so. Ciao, David.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.